Are you ready to grow your financial practice to heights you've never imagined? You're listening to the Elevated Advisor Podcast with your online business mentor and host, David Scranton. Each week, you'll learn Dave's secrets that have helped him become one of the most successful financial advisors in the country. So are you ready to become an elevated advisor? The Elevated Advisor Podcast starts now.
Welcome to the Elevated Advisor Podcast. I'm David Scranton, and today we have a very special guest. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Anthony Saccaro, president of Providence Insurance and Financial Services in Los Angeles, California, the land of heavy regulation, not just in the financial world, but in the entire world. And one of the things that makes Anthony so different as a financial advisor is that he's also a lawyer. But please, let's not hold that against him. Anthony, great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Why should you guys be different than everybody else and not hold it against me?
That's right. I know. Well, as Stacy in my Connecticut office likes to say, I'm a recovering lawyer. That's what she calls herself, recovering lawyer. So, hey, start, if you will, just sharing with our audience here about, how long ago you started in the business, what you did before getting into the business, and what drew you to the business. I
became licensed initially in 99, so coming up on 25 years here. And really, I started off as an annuity salesperson. I was going door to door. I just knew that I could make some commissions. Now imagine that, door to door. How do you think door to door sales would go today with the ring and everything else? But I literally, I was taught put one foot in the door as soon as they opened it so that they couldn't close it on your foot. And that literally worked. And so I wound up selling annuities door to door, and I did that till 06. In 04-ish, 05-ish, the SEC was starting to make some noise about and starting to bust some insurance agents, which is all I was, because they were moving 401ks and mutual funds over to annuities.
The whole source of funds argument, right?
Yeah, and I had a couple of friends that actually got busted for that. One of them went to jail, literally just, it wasn't a big deal as far as length of time in jail, but just the fact that he got arrested.
Well, it's not a big deal because you weren't the one in jail, right?
That's right.
If it's a week, it's a long time if it's you.
That's exactly right. So I got licensed initially as a 65 in 06. For one purpose. I was closed-minded. I wanted to sell more annuities. I just wanted to do it legally. But then I realized that as a Series 65 RIA, I could actually start accumulating assets under management. So I took my time to learn from that. It took me till 2011 to really, felt comfortable doing that. I'd never done it before. It was always insurance. So check this out. From 2006 to 2011, I gathered a whopping $500,000 of assets under management.
Wow. Gosh.
My thought was this: I will take on the small clients because if I get sued, no attorney will take the case, and I'll just learn on my own. That's literally what my thought process was. But I got
and then between 2011 and now?
Yeah, between 2011 and now, we've gone from $500,000 to about $150 million.
$150 million of AUM, yeah. And a lot of that came, I think, in the last 5 or 6 years, right? I mean, I believe you were under $50 million 5 or 6 years ago. And so the last $100 million has come relatively recently.
Yeah, in 2015, we made some changes from the former broker-dealer over to TD Ameritrade, and I was just under $15 million at that point. So from 2015 to now, we've gone from 15 to $150 million.
And Anthony, you have a track record of doing things just so you don't get into trouble. So you got your Series 65 with no intention of using it, because you didn't want to get in trouble, source of funds, pulling people out of securities, putting them into annuities. I get that. But then you got your law degree, right? Now, most people probably heard your intro and thought, well, he was a lawyer in a previous life, right? And then he got into financial services. But that's not how it went.
Yeah, it's not how it went at all. The short version of a very long story is when I got into my career, even in 99, I became a trust expert. I worked with a company that specialized in estate planning. I became a trust expert, and that became so successful that I started doing seminars for churches and started doing a couple hundred trusts a year, more trusts than most attorneys were doing. And it made sense for me to go out and become an attorney. Yeah, I didn't do it for the money, for sure.
I can't wait to hear how you justified that, saying that actually made sense. But go ahead, let's hear it.
Well, looking back, I'm not sure that it did make sense. All truth be told, but I liked it. I enjoyed it, and that was the key. Is I love studying law. It didn't bother me at all. So I enjoyed it. I became an attorney so that I could keep doing what I had been doing. I've been a trust expert for 20 years. You don't need to be an attorney to do a trust to be a trust expert. You have to be an attorney to be able to do the trust. And I had fed so many local attorneys through the contracts I had with them and the referrals I had with them. It made sense for me to go become an attorney. So I went. I became an attorney, and then about a year and a half ago or so, the Lord opened up an opportunity for me to be able to buy a law firm. So I bought a law firm. We picked up almost 1,000 clients, and here we are. I've always believed that even from 25 years ago, day one, no financial plan is complete without an estate plan. And I live by that. So we just brought it in-house. And now we do everything in-house instead of subbing it out. And it's a good referral. I refer the Providence financial people for estate plans to the law firm, and the law firm meets people for estate planning, and that then come over to us. So there's good symmetry.
Now, Anthony, some of this thing about getting an attorney, and this is, for those of you listening, this could be transferable to several people, right? Perhaps you were a chartered financial analyst like I am, but like Anthony, I was a financial advisor first, gathering assets, then went for the CFA, and I could resonate with what you said. That in retrospect, I'm not sure it was really worth it, but I did it. Some of you also maybe came from a CPA background. Okay, so any other level of technical expertise where this can kind of tie in, we can learn from Anthony here. So part of the rationale also, though, was I think, again, living in the world of, where everything's highly regulated, right? The concern that, wait a minute, even if I'm out here doing seminars and maybe educating people about trusts and everything, that, can regulators eventually come back and say, wait a minute, you're not an attorney, you shouldn't be doing this, right? So you said, okay, if I want to keep using this as a tool to attract people to my company, then I'm going to cover myself and I'm going to go out and get that law degree. So that was part of it also, was it not?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. The state of Florida, where you are, is very heavily against financial advisors selling estate plans. And so you have to have a law degree to legally be able to do it. And the SEC has been coming after or trying to come after the annuity business for a long time, and they've become creative in how they do it. So absolutely. It was a big part of that, being able to continue to be compliant. Plus, from a marketing standpoint, it's blue ocean. One of the things that we believe in is one of our core values is attracting, not chasing. And, because we've written a book, because we've been on hundreds of national TV interviews, because I've got my own radio show in Southern California for more than a decade.
Yeah, long time.
Because I've got my own podcast, and the reality is that the more known you are, the more credibility you have, the easier it is to become clients. And I think we took on a doctor about 2 years ago that said something that I won't forget. And we were talking about, he asked me, why did you become an attorney? And I said, I don't know, that's a great question. He goes, well, here's the key. He goes, a financial advisor that's an attorney is really more respected than a financial advisor that's not an attorney. Now, I don't know that 100% I agree with that, but here's the deal. The more credibility you have, a financial advisor that's on TV is more credible than a financial advisor that's not. A financial advisor that's written a book is more the more credibility you can add to yourself, the better off it's going to be, and the easier it is to take on clients.
I guess in some ways that's part of the reason I went the CFA route. And a lot of people say, well, wouldn't it have been cheaper to just hire a CFA? And I went and did it myself. And eventually now we have CFAs that are part of our group. But that's my question to you. Would it have just been cheaper to go out and hire an attorney and have an attorney on staff? Or were you not able to do that?
Yes, it would have been cheaper. And yes, I would have been able to do that. If I had to go back and do it again, I would have done that. I did it more for the enjoyment. I didn't do it for the credibility. I didn't do it for I didn't do it for the money. I think if you are a financial advisor, you don't have to become an attorney. If you have an attorney in office and you can represent yourself as having an attorney in office, that is just as much credibility as being an attorney. You don't need to become an attorney. Matter of fact, if I had to do it again, I may not do it.
So in the big picture, what's more important for the growth of your business? Is it having the degree, or is it having your own radio show and having your own book? Loaded question.
Yeah, by far the radio show and the book.
Yeah.
It really is. It's the credibility, and you don't attorney, and it's an interesting dynamic. When people meet us on the law side of things, and they find out I'm a financial advisor, that they don't like that. But when people meet me on the financial side and they find out I'm an attorney, it adds a little credibility, but not a huge amount of credibility. Don't let the fact that you're not an attorney or CPA weigh you down. If you have an attorney in office, it's the same thing. People just want to know that when they come there, you're the solution to everything.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Now so again, you've made a nice quantum leap in the last 5 or 6 years, going from under 50 million to over 150. And I also know that in your group, and also you do some other things on the more commissionable side in addition to just AUM. But how many staff members do you have right now as part of your team?
13, including 2 paralegals. So there's 11 at this point, and we have a new person that we just hired. So actually, we're 12 now on the financial side, plus 2 paralegals. That put us at 14. And we have another person starting in 3 weeks, so then we'll be at 16 total.
And a lot of your marketing in recent years, from what I understand, if I get this straight, a lot of it's been doing webinars, educating people on estate planning and other topics through webinars. And using that and doing a lot of work with Zoom, right?
We were forced into webinars with COVID.
Right.
So the reality is that
you guys were locked up for what? Almost 3 years with the pandemic, at least 2.
I remember, not being able to go to restaurants. The restaurants were closed, and then when we started being able to go to restaurants, we could only sit outside, and the restaurants were only a third full. It was a mess, for sure. So we were forced into doing something because there are still libraries today that we used to work with before COVID, and these libraries are still not allowing us in. So we only have about half the libraries that we did pre-COVID in 2019.
You used to do public educational events in libraries
These are the public
physically, and now they've limited that.
Yeah, well, right after COVID, and only until about a year ago, it was completely shut down. No public workshops anywhere. So we were forced to go to webinars, and now we do half webinars, half seminars, and our volume is about the same from both. And the way it works out, because you might ask the question, well, if the volume is the same and seminars cost you a lot more, the price per lead from a webinar and seminar is about the same. Mm-hmm. But we have to get twice as many people on the webinars as we do seminars, but you don't have to leave your home. You can do it. I do webinars from my home office. So it's much more convenient to do, and the follow-up's much more convenient. So there's pros and cons of each, but yes, we do a lot of business from webinars, never meeting people.
Yeah. Well, I remember, it's funny you're talking about all the venues being closed. I remember coming to see you and going out to dinner and playing the game where you had to wear the mask, and then once you sat down at your table, you could take the mask off. But then if you had to go to the men's room, you had to put the mask back on again. Why didn't you move to Florida? We were like a free country down here, as Steve Forbes always says to me. We never had an issue with it, right? You should leave. Come on down. Save all the tax money coming to Southern Florida, and if you ever get another pandemic, you could do what you want.
Yeah, you have no idea how many times I've actually thought about that. And if not Florida, maybe like Tennessee. Throughout the COVID years, I went to visit Dave Ramsey and went to some of his workshops. He and I have become friends over the years. And so the reality is that Tennessee, I would go there in the middle. California would be shut down and closed, and Tennessee is wide open and no mass anywhere. So it was my getaway. And so I've thought about that, but we're grounded there. My church is in California, a church that I've gone ever since I was a toddler. My business is there, and being an attorney, you can't just move. It's not like a financial advisor. If you move to another state, you've got to take the bar. You've got to do the whole thing again. You don't just move as an attorney. So I've thought about it. I'd love to get out of California, but right now I can't. But I'm also not closing the door. So you may get your wish. Be careful what you wish for.
How many times did you have to take the bar before you got through it?
3.
3. See,
yeah, 3.
That's why you're such a good salesperson. You see, if you pass the bar on the first time, you'd really stink at sales. So good for you. You're just smart enough, but you're not that that Mensa member, because gosh, we all met those people in the past that they're so smart they can't connect with people, and that's your gift. So.
Thank you. I don't know. Is that a compliment?
It is a compliment.
I graduated Lord E. Hall Cum. So, I'm definitely not in the Mensa group. When
I laugh when I get people sometimes who, I hear people say to me, oh, yeah, I took the Series 65. I got a 97. And I'm immediately thinking to myself, okay, this person probably can't sell himself out of a paper bag. And I know there's exceptions, but EQ is more important than IQ in this business, is it not?
Yeah. I'm an analytical, as you know. I have more engineers as clients than any other category of clients, and I believe it's because I am analytical. And by the way, you don't go to become, to go to law school because you want to in the latter half of life if you're not analytical.
Right.
So it's just part of who I am. And I was just talking with another friend of mine yesterday who we started about the same time, about 15 years ago, about 2011, in kind of the same model. And he and I kind of followed some same paths, and yet his AUM is about triple mine. And we really uncovered last night over a cigar the fact that the difference is he sells emotionally and I sell logically. It's the emotional that sells. It's
that's
the
worth
logical.
a 3 times multiplier right there.
100%. And it is. And that's exactly what's happened. And I wish I could have done, but I'm still me and I don't care. It's an infinite game. And I think Simon Sinek wrote a book called The Infinite Game, which has been a great book. It's helped me, but you're not in a race against anyone else. You're in a race against yourself. And that's what it's about. So it doesn't matter what someone else has done. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't, you want to keep moving forward. You want to meet your goals. And some people want a little one-office shop, and they're happy with that. And other people like me, I want to grow an agency. We're going to have offices all over the state of California for sure, and over the country if it makes sense. And I want to, in the next couple of years, I'm going to be more the trainer and mentorer than salesperson and closer. And that's the direction we're going. But there's nothing wrong for the one person that doesn't want to do that.
You've been talking about that for a while. And I think you're at a point now where you're finally getting some good traction. You've got your internal team put together. I mean, like you said, 14 members. That's pretty sizable. Good internal team. So now you're able to bring on other advisors and add value for them and service them and so on. So when do you see yourself? How many years down the road do you see yourself being in a situation where you're basically the CEO of your company, but you're not really doing a lot of client meetings?
Yeah. First of all, I've been wanting to grow to this point for 10 years.
I know.
And the only thing keeping me back, if I am honest, is fear. Yeah. And it's been some coaching that has gotten me to a point where you're going to do it or you're not. It's like having a kid. You're never ready to do it. And, about a year ago, I was the only advisor. A year and a half ago, I was the only advisor when we decided to make that switch. And now we are 4 advisors, all paying for themselves, all doing extremely well, except for our new guy, which is his 4th week this week. So he'll be paying for himself in a couple months. Now that I look at our volume and I know where we are, I think by the end of 2024 or sometime in 2025 latest, I'll be in a position where I can monitor and mentor and train and not have to have my own personal production. And then you become more of a business owner and not an employee. If you're the salesperson and you're the operations manager and you're the receptionist and you're the paperwork person, really what you did is you feel like you're self-employed, but you just bought a job, and I'm moving from that self-employed job mentality to being a business owner. It's exciting. Yeah.
Now you mentioned a coach. Has that been a key to your success up to this point, is coaching?
Oh, 100%. If I had to name one thing that would be the key to my success overall, it would be coaching. I've had 4 or 5 different coaches over the years. And I was actually, do you happen to remember Life Insurance Selling Magazine?
I do. I do.
They're not around, but they called me up one time. I got to say this was 2009 or 10 when they still existed. And maybe they're still around. I don't know. But they actually called me and said, hey, we want to put you on the front cover of our magazine. And I still have it in my office all plaqued up all over the place. But the title had something to do with mentoring, how mentoring helped change Anthony's career. So I've always believed and I've always had a coach. You and I have done some coaching. I've had some outside coaches, but coaching and mentoring is a huge part. Being teachable, being coachable is a huge part of the success that you're going to have. You don't know. It's not what you know that hurts you. It's what you don't know that hurts you.
That's right.
And that's what a coach's job is, to help you figure out what you don't know.
And what I think is so remarkable is that you're, a lot of people listening might think, and please don't take this the wrong way, we're even friends, I say a lot of things to your face and you return the favor. But a lot of people might say, gosh, 1999, 150 million under management. I mean, that's good, but that's not great for, almost 25 years, right? But it's really come exponentially. Like you said, you really didn't start gathering assets till 2011. And even of the last 12 years, the last 5 have been a greater portion. And I look ahead and I see maybe 5 years down the road, you being multiples of where you are today. Where do you see yourself being 5 or 10 years down the road in terms of AUM? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal? That not even big, hairy, audacious, but where do you see yourself being now with your knowledge of business, your ability to leverage yourself and teach other advisors how to do what you do?
So we're looking for 2 to 3 advisors a year over the next 5 years. This year with 2 advisors and myself, we've gathered. We'll finish the year probably in the mid 60 million range. I expect that next year
of new assets.
Okay. Yeah, new assets. I expect that next year we'll be at 100 million. We'll have 2 to 3 new advisors. We've already got 2 that next year will be their full year, or 3/4 of a year will be their full year. So we'll hit 100 or close to 100 next year
Of new assets for that year.
New assets gathered. And if we keep jumping, 50 million a year, if we're hiring 2 to 3 advisors a year, there's no reason why the advisors aren't doing 20 to 30 million at a rock bottom minimum. 2 to 3 advisors a year should bring in another 40 to 60, maybe 70 million a year. Within 5 years, why are we not at $1 billion of AUM?
Yeah. No.
That's the target. And it's a good target. It's a good number. And then when you go to sell a business, having the plan in place, having the workflows in place, the more buttoned down, I believe that the more buttoned down you are, if you want to sell later down the road, it is just, it's going to go for a higher multiple because someone could come in and it's turnkey. It has to be turnkey.
Yeah, your story is much like mine, where you start out maybe a little flat for a whole bunch of years, and then you start to take off, and then you grow faster and faster exponentially. And that's what I've seen with you being friends over the last several years. And frankly, I think I agree that, the next 5 years are going to be the best to come in that growth. That's pretty exciting.
Well, I'm so excited. Yeah, we just to give you an example, I recently, when you cross over 100 million, you have to go to the state, right? You have to go to SEC, to the Fed. So we were at the state until 2 years ago, and we were at about 95 million 2 years ago. Now we're at 150 million in a low or high interest rate environment, and we deal with fixed income, which means that higher interest rates, our values have dropped. If interest rates hadn't dropped, I really think we'd be at closer to 175 million. So we've added 50 to 75 million dollars of AUM over the last couple of years as well. So exponential has been the key, and it doesn't have to. And I look at some of the friends we're friends with, and I'm the slowpoke in the group. I really am. So, but it's okay. It's an infinite game. It's not a race against anyone else. It's a race against me. And I'm happy where we are. I'm never happy where I'm at, but I'm happy where I'm at. I'm content.
But you're now working on something that I did years ago, and that is I had to beat the analytical out of myself, because in some ways that held me back in sales and also held me back in terms of making decisions. And just talking with you yesterday, it seems to be that that's kind of one of your missions now. You're going to beat the analytical out of yourself and try to, and I think that's going to be important getting to the next level.
You can't, you have to learn to delegate. I've been a horrible delegator. You and I had some conversation. We've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, for 14 or 15 years, I guess. And I remember back then, there was times that I was the one that thought I was good at everything.
That's right.
And you and
I were afraid to let go of anything.
And there was one particular conversation that we had. We were kind of having a roundtable discussion. I think there were half a dozen top advisors, and and you were kind of like, "Who does this in your office? Who does this in your office? Who does this?" And I was like, "Well, I do." And now, conversation. You and I were laughing about it last night at dinner, but conversation was, "Who does this in your office?" And now my answer is, I think Jerry does. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure
but that's the way, as a business owner, that's the way it should be. So there's that fine line of letting go. I still keep a handle on things, but you have to trust your people. And if you have people in the right place and you trust your people, then that's their job.
You caught yourself a couple times yesterday. I had a laugh. It was a big progression in your growth where you said, "Well, tell me more about Button." Wait a minute, I don't need to know that. And then you moved on to another topic.
That's right.
You keep catching yourself. I don't need to know that. And I think you even said to me at one point, it's like, look, I don't need how the internal combustion of the engine works in order to drive the car, And I think that's a great way to look at it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So you're absolutely right. I was talking with Rana earlier because we're going to be, I know you just moved into a gorgeous place, brand new studio, brand new, took over the whole top floor. We've been there. It's gorgeous. And we're moving. So I was trying to pick some of your team members' brains, and there got to a point where I was like, okay, we're way in the weeds. I'm really not going to be the one dealing with this anyway. So let me have someone from my office call you, and you can tell them this stuff.
That's right. That's
so
right.
The delegation, it's freeing. It's liberating when you actually have people you can trust. If you don't feel like you can delegate, then you probably have a trust issue.
Yeah. No, that's exactly true. And that's something you had in the past, but you've managed to shake it. And so, by the way, you're going to be, I think you're a year or two away from maybe an important wedding anniversary for you and your wife. As a man of faith, how important is it to have that Rock of Gibraltar standing behind you as you're trying to grow your business?
Yeah, we're coming up on our 24th in January this year, 2024, and then 25th in 2025. So we got married in 2000. Anka has just been a rock behind me, just always believing in me, always pushing me, really giving me the freedom to run the business. She runs the household, I run the business, and she doesn't question anything that I do. So it's absolutely critical to have a good marriage. And I joke with people that she's my first wife. Of course, not a joke, but I introduced her as my first wife, and a lot of people are curious by that.
A warped sense of humor, as usual. That
It
doesn't
is.
shock me. So what other final words of advice would you have for people listening or people viewing here who may be at that flat point like you were? You were at a flat point in your career for a while, and then you started to get that exponential growth part. If you had to have a couple words of wisdom for them, what might that be?
Your comfort zone is your failure zone. If you're going to grow in anything, you're going to get uncomfortable doing it. First time I was on TV, I knew getting on TV was a part of attracting, not chasing. You have to be on TV if you're going to attract and not chase, and if you're going to build your credibility.
It helps.
It does help. It does help. And I was extremely uncomfortable the first time, and then it gets easier and easier. I can never say that I'm not uncomfortable. I have a respectful. I have a respect for TV, so I'm respectfully uncomfortable now. But you can't stay in your comfort zone. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. The most important thing that I ever did, if I look back at the string of where I got to where I'm at in 2006, I hired my first employee. It was the scariest thing I ever did, but it was the best thing I ever did. When I got my office, about the same time, scariest thing I ever did, best thing. My journey has been that of getting out of my comfort zone and growing into it, growing my comfort zone bigger and growing into it. And if you do that and you just take one step at a time, that's where coaching comes into play. If you don't even know what that next step is, get a coach, get a mentor. I know you have coaches at Advisors Academy, and that's what they do. And I've worked with your coaches, for years, and they've helped me. So get a coach, get a mentor, identify what's the next most important thing you can do. And as the question goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And you may not like the flavor of that first bite, but if you know that you got to get it down and you're going to be uncomfortable, bite the bullet. There are so many people that stay in their comfort zone, and just because they don't want to get uncomfortable, it just doesn't feel, then you're going to be where you are in the next 10 years. So if you're happy where you are, great. If you're not happy where you are, you're going to have to stretch. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. There's just no way about it. And the sooner you can get uncomfortable, the sooner you'll realize it really was not that big of a deal.
That's right.
And then your comfort zone's expanded, and then the next thing, and next thing you know, you're at 150 million AUM and 15 employees. I never envisioned myself here. Well, that's not true. I did envision myself here. But now we're at the point where, moving from having bought my own job to being self-employed with a team and moving into a business owner. And next year or two, I'll be able to take more time off, spend more time with my kids, and actually be making money when I'm not there. And that's something that's been foreign to me, and I've had to stretch my comfort zone to get there.
Yeah. You're always doing that. Think about the first time you drive a car on the street when you're 15 or 16. You're a nervous wreck, right? But now you don't think about it. Sometimes, as scary as it may sound, you drive, maybe not in L.A. You can't relate to this because there's a lot of crazy drivers out there. But, you leave the office, you drive home, you're pulling in your garage, and you think to yourself, wait a minute, I don't remember half the drive. What just happened? So everything's scary at first and then gets comfortable. But you're right. You got to face your fears head on. A mentor is a great way to help paint the vision for what's possible in the future. And a mentor is not a coach. Then the coach takes over, and the coach is what helps you get over your limiting beliefs along the way and your fears, and progress one step at a time. So, Anthony, this has been great. We're pretty much out of time, but you've been a great help for all of our listeners, and I'm glad you're here today. And as usual, I appreciate your friendship, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave. And if anyone wants to talk to me for any reason at all, they're welcome to call you, or they're welcome to call me. More than happy to talk to anyone.
How do they reach you?
Probably the best way is just go to our corporate website, providencefinancialinc.com.
ProvidenceFinancialInc.com.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a contact us button. Leave us your information. Let them know you want to have a quick call with me. I've been helped so much. I've been mentored so much that if I could turn around and give back to someone that's got a question, I've had financial advisors in my office asking if they can just have a quick conversation or how do you do this? I'm super open to that. You just got to get in touch with us and let us know.
That's great. And how about your book?
Yeah, More Life Than Money. Great book. It was a 4-year project, a lot longer than it should have been, but we got caught up in COVID, and so everyone got messed up. Probably should have only been about an 18-month project. It's recently become an Amazon #1 bestseller in multiple categories.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. If you want to, if you can use it or, you can buy it on Amazon.com. More Life Than Money. More Life Than Money is the name of the book.
Great. All right. Once again, Anthony, thank you so much. I'm glad to have you here.
Dave, glad to be here. Thank you so much.
All right, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Elevated Advisor Podcast. I'm David Scranton, your host, and I look forward to catching up with you next week. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Elevated Advisor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your colleagues. If you would like to talk about elevating your financial firm, reach out to us at theelevatedadvisorpodcast.com. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Sound Income Strategies, LLC, and the Retirement Income Source, LLC, are associated entities.